Hello, Conquerors. I hope that you have been able to stay cool this week. I know you guys have had quite the heat wave. Hoping that you were able to get some runs in, either by getting out early or running inside. But yeah, hang in there. I heard it's supposed to be cooling down tomorrow, and then you'll be back to your perfect California weather. Today I want to talk about a subject that isn't fun to talk about, but it's necessary, and in light of recent events, I feel as your coach that it's really important I remind you of how to be safe when you run. I don't know if you're familiar with the woman Eliza Fletcher, who was kidnapped and killed while running in Memphis recently. And unfortunately, all of us need to be safe on our runs. This isn't just for women, it is for men too, though as women, we are more vulnerable and tend to be more victimized by this than men are. But I think these tips are good for all of us. When you go out for a run, several things to remember. First of all, you want to try and run where it's well lit, where there's a lot of people, especially those early morning runs. We're talking 5, 6 a.m. where there aren't a lot of people out, but there's traffic on the street. Even though you may not want to run on the sidewalk, I recommend doing that. It's not to say that something can't happen, but it's more likely that with all the people at stoplights and all the people passing by, that someone would take the chance to try and hurt you. You want to make sure before you go for your runs that someone knows exactly where you're going, right? That they know the route that you take, not just, hey, I'm going out for a run at such and such a park, but that they know the route that you take. I think it's really helpful to have your location devices turned on your phone. Hopefully you share that with someone in your life who can have an idea of, they can follow you, they're able to see where your last location was. These are all things that you need to think about. A lot of us run the same route most of the week, right? We walk out the door and we run that same route. Maybe we go right some days, maybe sometimes we go left. But we generally run the same route a lot of the time. It's recommended, right, that if you're going to run the same route, a couple of things. You need to pay attention. I know I'm guilty of this, that when I run, I tend to really be thinking about all the stuff in my life, what's going on in my world. I come up with my best ideas. I solve all my problems during runs. And so sometimes that means that I'm not necessarily paying attention to my surroundings. If you're running the same route, you need to pay attention to what cars are normally there, what's not, who are the people that you see every morning. Be aware on your runs so that when you go for a run and there's something out of place, not to be cliche, but there's a white van where is not normally, then you're more aware of what's happening. It's always helpful to wear bright clothing so that you are noticed, and also someone that would be more difficult to do something to because you are so noticeable. You also want to trust no one. And I know that sounds awful, but I think in terms of for personal safety and for running, you have to trust no one. So even though that guy walking by you gave you the wave or the nod, it doesn't necessarily mean that he is your friend. I know when I'm running by myself and there aren't a lot of people on the trails and a man walks by me, I always run a little bit and then turn around and look back. Sometimes they see me do it. I don't give a crap. I'm not here to make people feel better about themselves. I'm here to be safe. If you feel threatened by someone, let them know, right? You're making me feel uncomfortable. Get away from me. Get loud. Get aggressive. If they're not there to harm you, then they are not going to be bothered by you saying that, and they will be like, sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. If you're running in a neighborhood and you feel unsafe, go to someone's house, knock on the door, make it look like you're going to someone's house if you're uncomfortable doing that, but make decisions. Don't worry about what people think, right? This is your safety and we need to be concerned about it. If you can, run with someone. Obviously, the more numbers there are, the less likely that someone will harm you. If you can run during daylight hours, that makes it even better when it's light out. If you are running in the dark, do have lights with you, headlamp with you. Make sure to have bright clothing. And again, try and run in a more populated area. Obviously, when we run trails up in the mountains, this isn't always the case, but that's where things like making sure people know the exact route that you're going to take, that there is some sort of device that can follow you while you run. You can also carry things for safety. First of all, don't ever run without a phone. I don't care if it's uncomfortable, have your phone on you, all right? It is a safety device. Obviously, if you have time, you can call 911, you can call for help. But also, if something were to happen to you and your phone was on you, they would at least be able to know where your last location was. You can also carry mace on you. I have a mace. It's made specifically for runners. And I'm a little concerned about carrying it because really, honestly, we all know what a dork I am and that the likelihood is that I will probably end up macing myself. And so you really know how to use mace, making sure that you don't end up, getting it in your eye too. More specifically, I think things like alarms. I have a flashlight that has an alarm that I can push on it. It makes a loud, obnoxious noise. Now, we're all used to hearing alarms, and they are often ignored. It doesn't sound like a car alarm, and obviously the hope is that it would trigger someone thinking that something is out of sorts and trying to find out. If someone does come at you, I think it's really great to have some self-defense training to protect yourself. B, all I can say is this: fight like hell. I remember being a young girl watching Oprah, and it has stuck with me my whole life. Never go to point B if you can avoid that, because generally that's where bad things happen. So fight like hell. Bite, scratch, do whatever, be loud. Who gives a shit? If somebody's coming up to you and maybe they're not there to threaten you, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about how you make someone else feel. Make sure to create those boundaries that will keep you safe. The last thing I was going to say is also be careful where you publish your runs, right? Especially if you're doing the same course all the time. If you're using things like Strava and Garmin Connect, you need to make sure that your privacy settings are set in such a way that the only people who can see where you're going and what you're doing are people that you know and trust, who are not going to hurt you. But if you are publishing your runs for the whole world to see and you are running the same course every day, you're giving a lot of information to people who could potentially use it to hurt you. I want to say to the males in our group, who we all know and love, and we know to be great and wonderful people, they can often be intimidating to people who don't know them. And so I just want to say, as a male, make sure to create that boundary with female runners, especially when you guys are alone. Create that space. Don't be offended if something happens and they feel uncomfortable. And just understand that it's not a personal thing. It is that we are vulnerable. And especially when we are out there, we don't know if you're there to be a friend or a foe. And so think about that in your actions and behaviors with other female runners and just all runners in general. I hate having to talk about such a topic, but we have to be realistic about the world we live in. And while this doesn't happen every day, it happens far too often. And so I would also say be aware of the other runners and be prepared to help other people too in a situation that they might find themselves in. If you see something that is weird, listen to that instinct and run away. Get out of that situation. I remember being on a run once. I was going through an underpass, and there was a gentleman who was up, sort of homeless gentleman, had been sitting up at the top of the underpass ledge, and I ran by, and after I ran by, he came down. He was walking, he wasn't running, but it made me feel uncomfortable, and I took off. I think I ran the fastest I've probably ever run, all the way home, didn't even stop, and continually looked back. I think the look back thing is really important. Don't assume that, oh, well, he waved to me, so that's fine. Always be looking back. Check on people. Make sure they're not following you or acting weird. The other thing that I forgot to mention is when we're wearing the headphones, right? A couple of things. Always one ear. We've talked about this, not two. Keep the volume slightly down so that you can be aware of sounds and your surroundings. And you can even use things like the Jawbone headphones, which don't actually go in your ear, so that you can still hear everything. Be as safe as you possibly can. Don't go out in the world being fearful, but go out in the world being smart and aware of what's going on, and be safe. That's really the most important thing. Take care of yourselves, and I hope you have a great run. I hope it's a cool run tomorrow, and I miss you guys. Have a good one.